Well, for more on mobile apps and other aspects of the business of dating in China, I'm joined by Ben Cavender. He's a senior analyst at China Market Research Group in Shanghai. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Now, Chinese consumers tend to be early adopters, especially when it comes to mobile technology. So what's unique to the dating app market in China as opposed to, say, other countries?
Well, I think the challenge here has really been that people are a little bit reticent about putting their personal lives online in China. They don't really know necessarily who they're talking to. And I think when you're talking about dating as well, there's this concern about whether or not the family is going to approve of who you're spending your time with. And so I think, going back 5 years, dating apps really sort of were slow getting going here because people had those fears. But we're really seeing it change now and seeing consumers really adapt very quickly to the technology because digital is really the easiest way for them to meet new people.
And given some of those concerns that you mentioned, how big is the dating app market in China?
Well, it's still a fairly small market. I mean, you look at the market, there are 200 million marriage-age singles in China, so that's a lot of people. The old model was really for them to rely more on matchmaking websites, and those were pretty popular over the last decade. Now you've got apps like Momo and Tantan really starting to take market share. I think the issue is people are looking for more instant gratification. They want to be able to sort themselves through a lot of people very quickly. And so you're seeing pretty fast growth. I mean, Momo, you're talking about 23, 25 million people. Tantan's 5 million, so it's a lot smaller, but it's growing very quickly because it has a lot of sort of Tinder-like aspects. It's a much more fluid app, and so you're seeing very quick growth right now.
Now, you mentioned some of these dating apps. You also have dating shows and other kinds of matchmaking services. So where do you see the biggest opportunities and the biggest challenges for growth?
Well, I think the challenge right now is really this massive gender imbalance that we have here. You look at the dating apps, it's very heavily skewed towards men. It makes it very difficult for a woman to find somebody who fits them well, to feel comfortable. They feel like they get harassed a lot on the apps. And so I think one of the big issues right now is how do you make the process more comfortable for women and make them feel comfortable. Tantan's a good example of an app that's done a lot of work to sort of make that a reality. They have a very strong anti-abuse filter in place. Basically, if somebody sends a message that a woman doesn't like, that has abusive language, and she says that to the company, the man's profile is immediately deleted. So they've been very aggressive about trying to shift that gender imbalance, and they have probably about a 3-to-2 ratio right now of men to women on the site. So they've done a lot of work in that direction. But I think the big growth is going to be from apps like that probably going forward, and then also apps that are not focused necessarily as much on dating, but as on finding your friend group and people that sort of share similar ideas or similar hobbies so that you can spend time with them.
And speaking of that gender imbalance, we know that there used to be this concept of the so-called leftover women, these women who were either through choice or not, still unmarried by a certain age. But now some studies are showing that the tables are turning, and 30 million Chinese men will be left over in 30 years. So how are these changes in Chinese culture, like marrying later or having kids later, impacting the overall dating market?
I think if you're a guy right now in China, it's very difficult. And you see with government policies, with the discussion in the media, there's a lot of pressure on women to get married because of this gender imbalance and this worry that there are going to be a lot of men who aren't able to ultimately get married because there just aren't enough women to go around. But interestingly, I think if you look at people born sort of in the mid-1980s onward, there's a lot of pushback. People aren't willing to just get married now because it's going to make their family happy or because it's the right thing to do. They are looking for love. They're looking for that connection. And so I think you're going to see people continuing to wait longer, really focusing more on how they have sort of a happy, healthy social life. But I think for the men, it's going to be a problem. You see a lot of people marrying now Southeast Asians or people from other markets who are willing to move to China and find a better life.
Well, certainly nothing wrong with being picky. Thank you for joining us, Ben Cavender, Senior Analyst at China Market Research Group.